meaningless because Australia is fifth. But the final test is of all importance to New Zealand. The crowd at the Sydney Cricket Ground, about 30,000, expecting a torrid battle. New Zealand determined to return home with at least one test victory in the bag. Today, the deciding point surely will be whether the New Zealand centres, White and Bailey, can hold the great Reg Gasnier and the very promising Queensland player, John McDonald. This probably will decide the fate of today's test. Almost ready to go, a sunlit Sydney Cricket Ground, a little bit damp though, a lot of rain in Sydney for the last 4 or 5 days. The crowd about 30,000 and the match about to kick off. Ready now for the kick-off in the first half of this third test between Australia and New Zealand. New Zealand in the white shorts running left to right in the first half. The kick-off has gone straight into touch. Bad luck for New Zealand. They're not really worrying too much about the wind, unfortunately, and so a penalty awarded to Australia in the opening seconds of this test on the mark of the kick. That is, of course, the centre of the halfway line. With the ball at the moment is Graham Langlands, the Australian fullback. Looks for the line on the member stand touchline, finds it well with the wind behind him, the flag raised just inside the New Zealand 25. The ball thrown there to Beuman, the Australian hooker, getting it away to Raper, number 8. Dummy to Raper, and it goes back inside there beautifully to Lynch. Plays it away to Kelly. Out the other side to Billy Smith, the Australian halfback, loose on the ground, but Australia still in possession. Kelly with the ball. We'll get up and play it to Gallagher. Raper. Good pass. They're using their forwards. Jeff Connell, Australian national serviceman, getting up and playing it on the 25 to Beuman, the Australian hooker. Back the other way to Raper. Short kick ahead. Racing for it there is King, but getting onto it well was Christian. Christian will play this one about 15 yards out from his own line. New Zealand in possession. Using their weight now, trying to test the Australian forwards, and last week in Brisbane in their second test, it was indeed a battle of the forwards. All forward action. Play 20 yards out from the New Zealand line. Last tackle coming up for New Zealand. Played away well there that time by Krilitic. Kick ahead. It'll go back to Langland's number 1, just inside the Australian half. Running around the edge of the mud patch. Well taken. Tackled well there by Lester Mills, number 3, coming in, and also by Bailey. Loose on the ground. Billy Smith picks up for Australia just inside the Australian half. Over towards King's wing. King trailing along behind him. He's out of one tackle, still going. King number 5 on his right, gets it into King. King not quite clear and beautifully dragged down by Doug Elwood, the New Zealand fullback, 20 yards out from the New Zealand line. Australia on the attack. Loose ball. Has to be a New Zealand ball, but the whistle is gone, and a penalty there against New Zealand for not allowing King to correctly play that ball. And the penalty awarded 20 yards out, about 15 yards in from touch, and it's against Roger Bailey, the New Zealand skipper, being spoken to by referee today, Mr. Cole Pearce. And coming up for the kick is John McDonald for Australia. He comes from Queensland, a centre who made his test debut back in 1962 against Great Britain, but only played about 20 minutes in his first test, had to retire with an ankle injury, and he's only really come back into big-time football in the last 2 or 3 months. John McDonald, having the first attempted goal in this match by either side, has taken it back about 26 yards, about 15 or 16 yards in from touch. The clock is showing 2 minutes gone in the first half, no points on the board, but now John McDonald with a chance. Number 13 in the foreground there is Peter Gallagher, the Australian prop forward. McDonald's boot to the ball looks pretty good. No, it's gone to the left of the post, flagged away out over the dead ball line, and so after 3 minutes play in the first half, no points on the board between Australia and New Zealand in this third test, and a 25 dropout coming up for New Zealand. Over towards the scoreboard corner. Number 7 there is Billy Smith, the Australian halfback, running straight through the mud patch. Trying to sidestep his way through, but the New Zealand cover defence pretty strong at this point. Goes to Raper, takes it on his fingertips, but a penalty against New Zealand creeping up inside the 5 goes to Australia. It's awarded over towards the foreground touchline, and another chance for Graham Langlands, Australian fullback, to look for touch on the near touchline, that is the members stand touchline. That one a little bit closer to the line, and watching it very carefully was Roy Christian, the winger, but the flag's raised 20 yards out. Beuman gets it to Raper. It'll come back to Raper. No, dummy goes the other way, and they get it away beautifully to Connell coming through on the burst. He's put down 15 yards out. Could be danger against New Zealand. Raper tries the other side of the field there. Finds Smith. Goes to Gallagher, and he's got Langlands and also King. Can't get his pass away. Dragged down by Orchard. Plays it away there to Lynch. Kelly. Good one that finds Connell coming through beautifully. Raper gets it there, swings around, looks for support, looks for Gallagher, loose on the ground, and I think perhaps New Zealand have regained, but the knock-on has been called, and the scrum now will pack down about 10 yards out from the New Zealand line, dangerously close, and also very close to the post. If Australia win the scrum, could be a chance for a field goal. Ball fed in by Irvine for New Zealand. Australian ball, beautiful dummy to Raper, King outside him, can't find King, bundled towards the touchline, and out he goes. Another scrum to pack down 10 yards out from the New Zealand line, and being brought back, of course, to the correct mark, 10 yards in from touch. Bob Irvine to feed for New Zealand. Another Australian ball, Smith, Gleeson, Gasnier for the first time in this game. Dumming, still running, palming off his players, looking for Ken Irvine, couldn't get his pass away, put down there beautifully by Bailey. Comes back the other side. Raper has knocked on and dived on it, fortunately, to save any chance of New Zealand regaining, but the scrum now to pack down the centre of the New Zealand 25-yard line. The field in excellent condition, apart from a rather slippery mud patch in the middle. A penalty as the ball is put in there to New Zealand against the Australian hooker, Buman, striking for the ball before the ball got into the scrum. Good chance now for New Zealand to clear their line and look for touch on the scoreboard touch line. With the ball at the moment is Roger Tate. Has made the mark, will now be kicking into a fairly stiff breeze, but with his power should easily find the line. There's the kick, Irvine watching it, won't find the line. Goes to Ken Irvine on the Australian halfway line. Well taken that time by Ted Baker, replacement winger. Out to Billy Smith. Draws his man. Another knock-on by Australia. Loose in New Zealand have regained. No, another knock-on. We'll have to play this one. Australia managed to dive on it in the final burst there. Falling onto it was Lynch for two knock-ons. A scrum to pack down 10 yards inside the Australian half. Ball put in by Smith for Australia. Another Australian ball trying to run around the blind side towards Irvine, but he's caught. Goes way back the other side. A penalty to Australia. Again, the New Zealand centres all creeping up. A couple of changes in the New Zealand back line. A late withdrawal was Wayne White, the centre, and coming in from the wing to take his position was Lester Mills, and then to replace Lester Mills, Ted Baker, playing in the number 5 jersey, has come on to mark Johnny King. There's the kick which goes to Christian, but he's put his foot into touch. Close go. Scrum to pack down now, about 27 yards out from the New Zealand line, and with the ball is Bob Irvine, the New Zealand halfback. A New Zealand ball this time. I think Irvine has managed to fall on it, gets to his feet and plays it away. Crashing through with it there, Dixon. He's only made it out a couple of yards, playing it to Irvine. Good pass away that time to Krilitic. Still going number 12, but the Australian cover defence very strong. Just watch the New Zealand forwards work now and see if they can break this Australian iron wall of defence. Old Kelly, number 11, in for the smashing sort of a tackle. Last tackle against New Zealand, and so the scrum to pack down midway between the New Zealand 25 and the halfway line. It'll be Billy Smith, number 7 for Australia, to feed the scrum. Another New Zealand ball, and fed away there beautifully by Irvine, but the New Zealand centre's a little bit slow to move. Tate going through with it now. Makes it out about 5 yards, but still he's only running across field, taken by Raper. Still loose. New Zealand handling leaves a bit to be desired. There's Bob Irvine kicking for the line. It goes past Ken Irvine. Racing back for it. Will gather it beautifully just outside his own 25. Beats Baker badly. Gets it to Langlands. Langlands still going. Beats one high tackle there, that time by O'Neill. Will play this one 10 yards inside his own half to Raper. Billy Smith. Lynch. Gasnier, and he's got King coming inside, but the cover defence a bit too quick that time. Bailey got him. He'll play it to Johnny King. Billy Smith, number 7. Raper. Has to go past Raper. One of the Australians down on the ground. I think it's Graham Langlands. Last tackle coming up for Australia. Getting to his feet is Jeff Connell. Played away by Buman. Goes all the way back there to Smith. I don't think that'll find touch, and the fullback Elwood gets underneath it, running it up to just inside now the Australian half. Well taken, but at least the New Zealand have regained possession. In the meantime, Graham Langlands, the Australian fullback, is still down on the ground, injured in the background. The first aid men now coming onto the field. He did run into a fairly stiff tackle. Can't really be described as a high tackle, but seems to be suffering from a bump on the head. And as soon as he gets to his feet, play will resume with New Zealand playing the ball about 6 or 7 yards inside the Australian half. No points on the board after 8 minutes play in this first half, and the crowd now swollen to a good 30,000. People still streaming into the ground, and probably will see 32 to 33,000. Cole Pearson, the white jersey, is the referee today, standing around as first aid men are still over the injured Graham Langlands. In the foreground, we have number 13 for Australia, Peter Gallagher, the Queensland prop forward, and nearer to the camera, number 5 is Johnny King, the local winger who plays for the world-famous St George club. Graham Langland still receiving attention. Apparently, I think, has received a slight cut because they've poured a little bit of collodion onto a mark over his eye. On his feet, at least, he's a very tough player, and he'll most certainly continue this game. I'm quite sure of that. The two Australian reserves, however, are Johnny Greaves, a centre, and Dennis Monty, a Queensland forward. What a lengthy delay as Graham Langland's still very, very shaky, and it appears from here as though the first aid men could be advising him to leave the field at least for a few minutes. Billy Smith on his right is supporting him. A very shaken player and being spoken to on the left of screen there by Reg Gasnier. Now apparently quite okay. First aid men are leaving the field, and Graham Langlands has decided to have a little bit of a rest while Billy Smith drops back to the full-back position. New Zealand in possession. Bob Irvine across there, that time to Tate, trying to get his centres going. The Australia now has regained. Gleeson going through with it, has made it to the centre of the field, right on the halfway line. This is Jeff Connell going through under a wall of New Zealand defenders. Billy Smith now has come up from the full-back position. Lynch going through. Gets it to Gasnier. A good pass away there. Comes out to King, but an intercept beautifully too by Roy Christian for New Zealand. That could have been danger. Luckily, King managed to drag him down. Played away by Krilitic right across field, and going through with it there was Sinnell, getting his pass back in field, but the Australian defence is swarming up. New Zealand unable so far to penetrate. Going through this time is Doug Elwood, the New Zealand fullback. He has burst clear, but coming at him, Billy Smith puts him down 8 yards inside the Australian half. Played away by Roger Tate. Goes all the way over there towards the centres, and coming through this time is Sinnell. Sinnell is put down 10 yards inside the Australian half. That's the last tackle against New Zealand. A very good burst through by the fullback Doug Elwood. And the scrum now to pack down 10 yards inside the Australian half to be fed by Billy Smith, the Australian halfback. A penalty, though, to New Zealand against Smith. Too far out for a goal kick because they'll be kicking into the breeze, but a good chance for New Zealand to look for the line in the scoreboard corner and gain some very valuable distance. There's the kick by Tate, and it's founded well. The flag has gone up about 20 yards out from the Australian line. Tap penalty to be taken there by O'Neill, the New Zealand hooker. Decides to run on his own, draws the opposition, gets his pass away there to Dixon, but Dixon is slammed down hard. Another Australian down injured, that's Buman, number 12. Tell you about it later as New Zealand starting to hammer the Australian line. This is Bob Irvine going through, but well put down. 20 yards out only from the Australian line as it goes across, that time to Sinnell, getting his backs working. Loose on the ground, comes to Johnny King, the Australian winger. Well put down, 20 yards out. He'll play it to Reg Gasnier. Blind side to Peter Gallagher. Comes there to Christian. Christian over the top helps put him down, and also Bailey, and a roar goes up from the crowd because there was a punch or two flying. Goes to Billy Smith for Australia. Loose on the ground. Bad handling by Australia. Booted through there. New Zealand in possession, but must have been a knock-on, surely. Mr. Pearce has caught it. The knock-on has been called, and so a scrum to go down right in front of the Australian post and about 20 yards out. And in the meantime, another Australian down injured in the background. A little bit difficult to tell who it could be from here. Possibly not Johnny Gleeson, the Australian 5'8", is on his feet. Ken Irvine is standing looking at the injured player. Cole Pearce also looking as Johnny Raper walks across to check, and we'll try and pick up this player. It's rather difficult to tell who it is. The backs, I think, are all on their feet. Possibly John McDonald, I think, the Australian centre. I'm sure that's his. It is John McDonald, the Australian centre, now walking around having a look. Play to resume in just a minute as players stagger back to their positions, and already Australia has had 2 players injured, with Graham Langlands, the fullback, knocked about badly in the first 8 or 9 minutes. And now the injured player was not McDonald, but Alan Buman, the hooker, going back into the scrum as the scrum packs down 20 yards out to be fed by a Smith for Australia. A New Zealand ball dived on by Bob Irvine. He'll get to his feet and play it. Goes across well there to Krilitic. Well taken. Should have got rid of it earlier or play this one after losing 2 yards. Swing it about Wilson. Snell getting his backs moving. Bailey with a short kick ahead and racing forward is pulled back. Elwood, he might get to it. Elwood dives and diving onto it. It is a try for New Zealand. No, yes, it is a try for New Zealand. New Zealand has gone over. A lucky thing there. The Australian defence fell down badly. And Johnny King, the Australian winger, raced across to try and cover after Doug Elwood followed through a short kick by Bailey for New Zealand. The ball bounced the wrong way, and with players diving forward, it did appear that some members of the crowd decided that the New Zealand player getting onto the ball, the scorer, of course, was 5'8" Roger Tate, had bounced it, and the referee, Cole Pearce, had no hesitation, however, in awarding the try. So first blood to New Zealand. They lead 3-0 after 12 minutes play in the first half. The scorer, 5'8" Roger Tate, and the kick to be taken also by Roger Tate. 3-0 as Tate attempts to convert his own try. He's placed it only about 12 or 13 yards out in the air. It's hit the upright and bounced back, no points. The scores remain at New Zealand 3, Australia 0 after 13 minutes play in the first half. With the ball is Billy Smith, the Australian halfback. Australia running with the breeze in this first half. Coming through, though, is Graham Langlands, apparently recovered from his injury. Very deep kick. Goes right back there to Bob Irvine. Runs it out 10, 15, 25 yards now. Finally caught there by Jeff Connell and also by Buman. Marked by Buman as he plays it away. The New Zealanders a little bit confident now, going through with it, Snell. Well taken, though, by Peter Gallagher. New Zealand, knock on, unfortunately, which has been caught, and the scrum to pack down on that spot about 27 yards out. The offender that time, Dixon, about to say that New Zealand looking very, very confident now, and apparently even after only 14-odd minutes play in the first half, are confident they can crack the Australian forward barrier. Gleeson getting it to Gasnier, and Gasnier is heavily dumped there, almost shoulder dumped. Good tackle by Bailey. Goes to Gleeson. Australian 5'8", well taken, running a little bit too far across field. Comes back the other way to Smith. Gasnier, long pass to Langlands. Langlands' trip still going, but he can't get any further than that. Will get up after being tackled by Christian, number 2, and play it to Buman, number 12. Blindside to Kelly, straight ahead. Straight into the New Zealanders. Looks for King, and he's slammed down there. A high tackle at the last minute by Krilitic. Last tackle against Australia. The scrum to pack down on that spot midway between the New Zealand 25 and the halfway line. The scrum getting off the mark a fraction. Scrum to be fed by Bob Irvine, standing to left of referee Pearce. Another New Zealand ball. Goes out to Tate. Feeding it away well there to Bailey, and then to Elwood, coming again from the fullback position, getting it away well to Mills. Mills is juggling the ball, can't get any further up the field. Will play this one just short of the halfway line. New Zealand keen and confident. They're probing all the time, looking for gaps. This time barging his way through. Krilitic has made it at least into the Australian half, about 5 yards in. Last tackle coming up for New Zealand. Kick deep 1-2, caught Australia out of position. McDonald's racing for it. It's again bounced over the Australian line, racing for it Bailey. Langlands gets to it, however. Bailey's chasing him, and Bailey and also Irvine come in and slam him down 6 yards out from the Australian line, right in front of the post. Plays it to Smith. And a penalty, mainly against that time Roger Tate being offside, goes to Australia, and a good chance for them to clear the line. They need this one desperately, and that short kick over the first line of the Australian defence when they're near the Australian line is paying huge dividends for New Zealand. Johnny King with the ball, throws it over there to Buman. Tap penalty to Raper. Smith, dummy to Raper, and Raper finally backs up and gets it. Raper centre field, midway between his own 25 and the halfway line. Smith to Gleeson. Gleeson, number 6, well taken there by Gary Smith for New Zealand. Billy Smith now for Australia. Australia running across field. That straight down the middle stuff we've seen in the first 2 tests isn't working. Goes right back to Langlands. Langlands beats one tackle there, still going. Gets his pass away to Gleeson, and he's got Irvine coming up in support, but couldn't get a pass clear. Will get to his feet and play it to Kelly. Kelly gets it this time to John McDonald, the Australian centre. A penalty this time to New Zealand for incorrectly playing the ball, and also a forward pass, I dare say, to McDonald. And a good chance for Roger Tate to again look for the line on the scoreboard touchline, kicking away from the camera. There's the kick, which has raised the flag 35 yards out from the Australian line, and with the ball is Colin O'Neill, the New Zealand hooker. New Zealand throwing it about. This one comes all the way out to Mills. Mills is caught, trying to step his way through. Raper gets onto him, number 8, and tries to put him down, but falls down instead himself. New Zealand forwards determined to have a go in typical Australian fashion today, and it looks as though this match could just erupt a little bit because the high tackles are starting to come in again. Good backing up that time by Bailey. Back to Mills. Mills is well covered, both sides. He'll get to his feet and play it 20 yards out from the Australian line. Back this time to Dixon, drawing the opposition, getting his passes away. The high tackles coming thick and fast, and the game just a little bit too rugged for comfort now. But referee Cole Pearce, I'm sure, will have this one completely in control. Bill Smith for Australia to feed the scrum wheeling off the mark. They're about 20 yards out from the Australian line. The two front rows can't pack down. Put in by Billy Smith, another New Zealand ball. Goes there to Snell, Tate, to Bailey. Got Mills rather outside him and couldn't get his pass clear. Taken by Gasnier. Running from the base of the scrum, there's Tate up in the air. Irvine goes for it, couldn't get to it for Australia. But Australia do have it. Playing it, in fact, there to Gleeson. Goes to Raper now. Going around the edge of the New Zealand ruck as brought play out to the Australian 25. Smith. Dummies, looks for Gasnier, but in turn finds Lynch. Lynch is well taken, wrestled down there by Bob Irvine. Will play this one about almost on the Australian 25 to Billy Smith. Back to Langlands for a clearing kick. Should find touch, I think. It might even go out in the full. Oh, a magnificent kick. Getting onto it beautifully there was Elwood. Elwood didn't bounce the ball at all. He's got Christian in support. Comes to King, gets around King. In fact, goes through King. Chased eventually by Billy Smith and put down. Plays it to Christian. Christian gets it away well along the ground to Snell. Snell, number 13, gets his pass away in turn to Krilitic. Krilitic across field is put down by Gleeson, centre field. New Zealand using that short kick to great advantage. There's the kick by Tate. Irvine gathers for Australia. Beats his opposition winger Baker badly. Still going, comes in field, but he's sandwiched there. And they're just inside the Australian half. Comes to Raper. Raper dummies. Gets his pass away, though, to Lynch. Lynch straight down the centre, is well taken underneath. At least has brought play just inside the New Zealand half. Comes to Gallagher. Blonde-headed Queensland front rower. Well taken there by his opposition number, Snell, who in fact is the New Zealand lock. Plays it to Buman. Billy Smith for Australia. Short kick, New Zealand tactics now. Smith racing forward, also Irvine, but it bounces straight there to Elwood, the New Zealand fullback. Beats one tackle, still going, tries a kick himself. Gets it downfield, Gasnier is after it. It'll beat him, and it finds touch magnificently 10 yards inside the Australian half. Scrum to go down on that spot, and it'll be Billy Smith for Australia to feed the scrum. Smith with the ball at the moment. And a penalty before the ball goes into the scrum for Australia, pushing New Zealand off the mark. This one is a fair way out. It's 10 yards inside the Australian half, and of course only 10 yards in from touch. It's a fair way out for a kick, considering the breeze is directly into the path of the kick. But with the ball is Roger Tate. We'll see in a moment whether he's interested. No, he's obviously going to look for the line on the near side touch line. There's his kick. No risk about that one. The flag has gone up 20 yards out only from the Australian line. Christian swings the ball across there to O'Neill. O'Neill takes the tap penalty, gets the pass away well there that time to Dixon. Dixon has made it up to within 5 yards. He's playing it to Gary Smith. Outside him, he's got Krilitic. Goes to Krilitic. Then Irvine to Tate. Looks for his centre Bailey, but he's well taken there by Gleeson before he can get rid of the ball. We'll play this one after losing about 2 yards. Bailey feeds it away well there beautifully to Orchard. Orchard gets his pass away loose on the ground, but New Zealand still have it. Last tackle coming up for New Zealand. And with 22 minutes gone in the first half, New Zealand still lead Australia 3 points to 0. The try by Roger Tate. New Zealand still swinging about, but a loose ball here, dived on by King for Australia. Slips, gets to his feet, still going. Another high tackle flying for him, but at least he's regained for Australia. Tackle there by Krilitic, plays it 20 yards out to Lynch, to Gallagher. Gallagher well taken by Snell, number 13. Plays it to Buman, Billy Smith. Dummies, gets it away well there to Kelly. Kelly trying to wrestle his way through, but he's caught by Orchard and can't get any further. And a bit of a scuffle going on. This game could develop. It goes back to Langlands for a clearing kick. Only a short one. This time they've caught Elwood a little bit out of position, but he'll get it just inside his own half as Langlands comes to him, tackles him, but he gets his pass to Christian. Christian going infield, has beaten 2 tackles, runs to Connell. Connell puts him down, and also Buman midway between the Australian 25 and the halfway line. The ball goes to Gary Smith. The tackler that time, Ron Lynch. Getting to his feet a bit slowly. Lynch and Noel Kelly, the Australian front rower, sent off last week against New Zealand after a fight with Robin Orchard, is being penalised. The penalty goes to New Zealand midway between the Australian 25 and the halfway line, right in front of the posts. A good chance for Roger Tate, and the score at the moment favouring New Zealand, 3-0 after a try by Tate. This one not beyond the very versatile New Zealand three-quarter, although he is kicking into the breeze and the ball already a little bit on the greasy side. The Sydney Cricket Ground looks in perfect playing condition until you have a very close inspection, because the centre patch is very, very boggy and slippery, and the surrounding sections, until you get right down near each touch line, each try line, are very, very heavy and very, very slippery. Tate now with a chance of putting New Zealand ahead 5-0, taking his time with this one, has angled it correctly. It's 35 yards out exactly from the Australian post, but at least right in front, and as he comes in, it's New Zealand 3, Australia 0. Dropping a bit short, but it's very high, and the flags are up, and New Zealand have gone further ahead. And now New Zealand, after 24 minutes play in the first half, lead Australia 5-0. Billy Smith brings the ball back to the halfway line for Australia, and Australia quite obviously will have to pull up their socks. New Zealand is smarting after 2 successive test defeats, are determined to atone in this one, and they're already quite obviously a highly improved team on the sides we've seen in the first 2 tests. The ball with Christian at the moment as he runs it up to the 25. Well taken by the 2 Australian second rowers, Lynch and Connell. Plays it away this time to Orchard. Straight ahead, well taken as Gallagher gets to him, number 13, and slams him down. Played away this time by Krilitic. Gets his pass away well, but New Zealand not backing up particularly well as Gary Smith looked for support and couldn't find it. There's the kick by Tate. Again caught Langlands out of position. Billy Smith gathers in. He's lost it though. Could be danger here. No, Billy Smith managed to get it. There was the knock on, and Bailey manages to scoop it out there to Irvine. It's gone behind the winger, unfortunately. Baker into touch, and that could have been danger for Australia as Smith fumbled the ball. Picked up beautifully by Bailey, who shot it over to his winger, Baker, who unfortunately couldn't handle with the line wide open. Scrum going down on the Australian 25. Another New Zealand ball. Going through with it is Snell. The New Zealand lock forward has brought play up to within 20 yards of the Australian line. New Zealand, a 100% better team. Going through with it, Dixon straight ahead, but the Australian cover defence pouring across. They're only 15 yards out from the Australian line. The penalty goes to New Zealand, and rightly so, because Australia would not let Dixon get to his feet and play that ball. They're trying to wrestle the ball out of his hands. Another excellent opportunity for Roger Tate to put 2 more points on the board for New Zealand. This one awarded pretty well right in front of the posts, only 15 yards out, and with 25 minutes gone in the first half, New Zealand leading Australia 5-0. I'm almost convinced this will make it 7-0. Roger Tate taking his time with the ball. He's only had 1 shot at goal, and of course it's landed. That was his last attempt, and his first attempt for that matter. This one will be his second attempt, an even easier kick. 15 yards out, almost directly in front of the posts, kicking into the breeze. Roger Tate scored all points so far, and the flags are up again. Another 2 points to Tate, another 2 points to New Zealand, and after 27 minutes play in the first half, New Zealand 7, Australia 0. crowd around the Sydney Cricket Ground a little bit astounded at Australia's efforts so far, because New Zealand by far the better team in every respect. Again, Smith places the ball, and again Langland's through, the Australian fullback. A very deep one, looking for Christian on the wing and finds him. Christian gets it on the second bounce, decides to run it out himself. Makes it to the 25, tackled well by Ron Lynch. Played away that time by Gary O'Neill, by Colin O'Neill. And the New Zealand forwards content to run across field, probing, looking for openings. This time going through with it is Gary Smith. Beats two players, comes to Raper, Raper puts him down. Centre field, midway between the New Zealand 25 and the halfway line. Back to Bailey, there's the kick, it'll go straight to Langland, the Australian fullback, just outside his own 25, steps around, tries to step around Bailey, coming at him finally there was Dixon, and a wild tackle that draws a roar from the crowd. Cole Pearce referee just let it go. Played out here to Billy Smith. To Reg Gasnier, King outside him, but he puts it inside, it's knocked down, and the ball's gone into touch. A good piece of anticipation that time by Krilitic. The ball into touch and the scrum to pack down about 3 yards inside the New Zealand half. It's Bob Irvine to feed the scrum for New Zealand. And this time it's another New Zealand ball that comes straight out to Irvine, who juggled it, knocked it on. Referee caught it, and so the scrum packs down on exactly the same spot. This time it bounces out Australia's way, but in fact did not get into the scrum. It just indicates that New Zealand are having a field day with the scrum. It's an Australian ball. And no, New Zealand got onto it, but of course that player was obviously offside. Darting around the blind side of the scrum to fall on the ball that time was Krilitic, caught offside, and so the penalty goes to Australia. Graham Langland's now with an excellent opportunity to look for the line. There's his kick. Good kick too, which will raise the flag only about 8 yards out from the New Zealand line, and at this point, of course, Australia have the tap penalty. Buman taps it. Raper, Gleeson, Gasnier running back the other way now, trying to beat the cover defence, going back in field, finds Lynch. Lynch can't get his pass away, well taken there by Colin O'Neill. Plays it to Raper, Billy Smith to Kelly, under one high tackle there by Tate, still going, has barged his way up to within 15 yards of the New Zealand line. Billy Smith, and a penalty right in front of the New Zealand posts against New Zealand, creeping up inside the 5. What should be an almost certain 2 points for Australia. Coming up to take the kick will be John McDonald from Queensland, who has had one shot at goal which missed. This one is far easier. He's taken it back about 20 yards. It's pretty well in line with the right upright. He's got the breeze behind him, everything in his favour, and the thing that really Australia must have from this kick is 2 points, because with 10 minutes to go to half-time, they're trailing New Zealand 7 points to 0 after a try and 2 goals by 5'8" Roger Tate. And this at least would break the ice for Australia. They need it badly. John McDonald, Queensland centre. Good-looking kick, that one, but it's gone to the right of the post. Just veered away at the last minute, allowed too much for the breeze. And so the scores remain at New Zealand 7, Australia 0, and 9 minutes to go to half-time. The crowd stunned, amazed. They can't believe this is happening as the ball goes to Billy Smith. Smith carving his way through this time. Looks to support and it wasn't there. He'll get up and play it to Lynch. To Gallagher. Gleeson slipping in the mud. You can see the mud fly off his boots, but at least he's made another 5 yards. Laid away by Buman, Gleeson, and a penalty against particularly Roger Bailey, the New Zealand skipper, number 4, being spoken to by referee Cole Pearce, creeping up inside the 5. And Cole Pearce, the referee, is making quite clear that Bailey understands that he won't stand for this at all. Bailey has a very quiet and earnest listen to it. And John McDonald, the Australian centre number 4, has decided to have his 3rd shot at goal. This is a very difficult one, awarded about 12 yards in from touch and something like 40 yards out from the New Zealand posts. And the breeze this time not really behind him at all, but blowing across the flight of the ball from right to left. Only 8 minutes to go to half-time. New Zealand 7, Australia 0. Interesting to remember that in the first two tests, Australia won 22-13 and then 35-22. What a different story today. John McDonald, third attempted goal. So far, 2 failures. That one has gone to the left, I think. Yes, flagged away to the left of the posts. The scores remain. New Zealand 7, Australia 0. New Zealand content to use their forwards. Rarely have the backs come into it. Snell now barging his way through, trying to make some ground. He's brought play at least up to the New Zealand 25. Played away there that time by O'Neill. Going down with the ball is Orchard. He's dragged down again by the 2 Australian second rowers, Connell and Lynch. Back to Tate, there's his kick, looking for distance, but it goes straight down the centre. Underneath it is Johnny Raper for Australia. Looks for the halfway line, is dragged down pretty well centre field and on the line. Gets up and plays it to Langlands. Many of the Australians out of position as Connell gets it to Gasnier. Gasnier with his head down almost gets his way through. Had Irvine coming up in support, but well covered by Lester Mills. There's Gallagher straight ahead and well taken for his trouble by Ray Snell. Last tackle coming up for Australia, about 10 yards inside the New Zealand half. Goes to Kelly, tries the kick. Everybody after it, but it'll go straight back to fullback Elwood. Over his head, the bounce beat him, chases it back. Irvine has rushed up to him to try and cover. Also Kelly chasing him through, pushes off Kelly, beats Irvine, but has slipped. Eventually gathered in by Gallagher right in front of the New Zealand posts. Many of the New Zealanders very slow to get back to formation. There's the kick through, which Langlands will have to hurry and gather. Oh, almost beaten by Christian. Langlands just managed to get his boot to it to stop the ball rolling. Langlands playing it to Raper. Gets it away to McDonald. Smith. Back inside to Gleeson. Gleeson stepping around the opposition. Has burst through, finds Irvine, and Ken Irvine is racing to the line. Elwood comes across, but he must go in for try. He's darting for the post to get it nearer, and Ken Irvine has gone in and scored about 15 yards to the right of the post after a beautiful breakthrough by Australian 5'8" Gleeson. And now Australia has bridged the gap somewhat. New Zealand lead Australia 7 points to 3 with 6 minutes to go to half-time and the attempted conversion to come. Australia now with the tap penalty just outside their own 25, and of course Australia has bridged the gap following Ken Irvine's try, which made it 7-3. The try was converted by John McDonald, the centre, and so with half-time about 3 minutes away, it's New Zealand 7, Australia 5, with the ball out to Gasnier. Gasnier not quite clear. Well covered there and well dragged down by Snell. Playing it to Gallagher. Lynch, straight down the centre, has made it up to within about 10 yards of the halfway line with the last tackle coming up for Australia. Gallagher with a long one back to Langlands. Looks for the line, but it'll go straight back to Elwood. Elwood running it up towards the halfway line. Lots of covered offence there, and King, number 5, takes him beautifully underneath. Gets to his feet and plays it to Snell. Getting it away well there that time to Kriletich running across field, dumped in the mud. This time running through with it is Dixon. Dixon has made another 5 yards, and it's noticeable that New Zealanders are making ground if they try the Australian rucks and go into it head first and flat out. Short kick coming up. It might beat everybody. No, Langlands watches it carefully, takes it beautifully, but slips. Might kick, and no, he dummies. Decides that he'll run on his own, gets over the 25, looks for the halfway line. He's got King outside him, outside to King. There's a collision there of Langlands and King. As coming across to cover was Kriletich, and King will play this one to Buman just inside the New Zealand half. Back to Lynch, Gleeson, Gasnier, McDonald. McDonald well put down there. Beautiful diving tackle by Lester Mills. Plays it to Gasnier. Back to Gallagher. Gets his pass away, though, to Lynch. Lynch running over towards Langlands. Gets his pass to Langlands. Langlands going back inside. Finds Lynch again. Looks for support. Swings it around to Kelly. Kelly's lost it. It might roll out. New Zealand's have dived for it, but it's rolled into touch just inside the Australian half, and the scrum to go down a little bit further back than that because of a knock-on right on the halfway line. Scrum getting off the mark. Referee Pearce tells them to get back. Put in by a Smith for Australia. An Australian ball. Can't get rid of it. Yes, he can. Gets it away to Gleeson. Gleeson dummies. Finds Raper, number 8, going through. Tries to push up Snell, number 13, and drag down right on the halfway line. He'll play it to Billy Smith. To Lynch, Gleeson, Gasnier, McDonald, Irvine coming up on his right. He slipped though, a good diving tackle still going, and dragged down for his troubles over there by Ted Baker. Irvine will be the dummy half, the Australian right winger. Getting it to Smith, Gleeson, Gallagher. Long one to Gasnier, number 3. Then Langlands, and well taken by Christian, who came through like a rocket. Prime Hooter goes in the background, and at half-time the score is New Zealand 7, leading Australia 5 in very much of a surprise. And for New Zealand, a try scored by Roger Tate and 2 goals kicked by Tate, and for Australia, a try by Ken Irvine and a goal, a conversion of that try, by John McDonald. At half-time, New Zealand 7, Australia 5. In the second half, Australia kicking off, running left to right. There's the kick-off, a deep one. It'll go all the way back there to Krilitic, number 12. Running it out over his 25, taken by Gallagher. And at half-time, of course, New Zealand led Australia 7 points to 5. It goes to Snell, number 13, trying to barge his way through. Pulled down by Raper, and assist in tackle by Lynch. New Zealand still content to keep it in the forwards. Snell again trying to barge his way through and make ground. We'll get to his feet now and play it to Colin O'Neill. Back to Tate. Short kick ahead. It'll go to Billy Smith. Takes it beautifully just inside his own half. Running it back over the other way. Dragged down over the top by Bailey. We'll get up and play it in the mud. We've had a fair deal of rain fall in the last 10 minutes on the Sydney cricket ground. The ball now will become a little bit more slippery, but the rain has eased. As it goes to Smith, to Gleeson, Gasnier. Gasnier beats a smashing tackle, attempted tackle at least by Mills. Running towards Irvine's wing, still going, but well caught. Didn't want to sell Ken Irvine the dub. Back to Billy Smith. There's the short kick ahead, looking for the line. It'll probably beat everybody. Now it goes into touch on the full, and so the scrum to pack down on the mark of the kick. That is right back on the halfway line. Scrum packing down on that spot. Only a minute or so gone in the second half. New Zealand 7, Australia 5, and Australian ball to Gleeson. Can't get his pass away. We'll get up and play this one to Raper. Smith gets it back inside there and finds Gleeson. Gleeson well dragged down. Play now about 10 yards inside the New Zealand half. Playing it to Raper. Tries the other side along the ground. A penalty to Australia for New Zealand's backs, all creeping up inside the 5, and again in particular Roger Bailey. Now interesting to see what Australia will do. The penalty awarded 10 yards inside the New Zealand half. Langlands, no, is not interested for goal, looking for the line. There's his kick. Has raised the flag about 15 yards out from the New Zealand line. Played by Buman. No, gives it to Billy Smith. Smith, short kick over towards his back. That's a new one. Goes beautifully there to Connell. Connell is smashed down about 22 yards out from the New Zealand line. Plays it to Raper, to Kelly, straight ahead, gets it to Smith. Smith looking for the gap, finds McDonald. McDonald going for the line, and McDonald's in for Australia. Beautiful move there by the Australian backs. And Australia now has gone to the lead and leads New Zealand 8 points to 7 with the attempted conversion to come. Beautiful try by McDonald, who last week scored 2 tries in the second test in Brisbane against New Zealand, and on that performance well on the way to matching that effort at least. A magnificent try which Billy Smith set up, aided by Noel Kelly, and McDonald sidestepping his way around 2 New Zealand tacklers. Went in about 10 yards pretty well in from the corner, which leaves him a fairly angled kick at goal. So far he's landed only 1 goal, and this will be at least his 5th or 6th attempt. But Australia in the lead, and a long way to go in the second half. We've only had 2.5 minutes play now in the second half. Australia 8, New Zealand 7. McDonald now ready to try and make it 10. Got a very angled kick which he's placed just outside the New Zealand 25, the line on the right-hand side of the screen. And in comes John McDonald. Good-looking kick, that one. And no, it's hit the upright and bounced back again. So the scores remain at Australia 8, New Zealand 7 after 3 minutes play in the second half. Now, New Zealand trailing after leading Australia at one stage 7 points to 0. A long way to go, and New Zealand are still playing well. That was just a copybook backline movement that took them by surprise. There's the kick-off by Elwood. Along the ground, goes past Gasnier, lets it roll, picked up by Irvine. Irvine decides to run. Gets around one, by King, I should say, not Irvine, by King, the Australian left winger. Playing it away now, goes to Kelly, now to Lynch. Lynch has broken through, runs straight and hard though to Bob Irvine. Will play this one about 6 yards inside the Australian half. Billy Smith to Connell now, trying to barge his way through. Well taken though by Krilitic. Played away by Buman, all the way back to Langlands. Langlands with a kick now, looking for distance. All the way back to Elwood. Takes it Australian rule style. It went behind him. He's about 20 yards out from his own line. A bit of a kicking duel now. Looking for the line that must go into touch on the full. It does. And so the scrum now will pack down about 20 yards out from the New Zealand line. The field a little bit on the slippery side. The rain has stopped completely. But in the short 10 minutes burst, a lot of rain fell on this ground. From the scrum, a penalty to Australia, loose arm in the scrum by New Zealand, and an excellent opportunity if McDonald is interested. We're waiting to see whether he'll be called over, and he is. McDonald, who has landed only 1 goal for Australia, will have another shot. And I think if he misses this one, you'll see a change in kicker, and probably Graham Langlands or Ken Irvine, the winger, will be brought on to kick for goal. But John McDonald will be tried once more, at least once more, placing this one just outside the New Zealand 25, 10 yards in from touch, and kicking so that the wind, which has eased considerably from the first half, will be blowing from right to left across the ball. John McDonald ready now. Australia in the lead by only a single point. This will be an excellent kick if he can land it. Looks fairly good. It's hit the upright and bounced back again on a juggle, a knock-on by New Zealand right in front of their own post, and the referee has let it go. Apparently said it was not a knock-on. The ball goes across to Dixon. Dixon charging and has lost, in fact, 2 yards. New Zealand in a bit of trouble now. Australia pouring on the pressure, and last tackle is coming up for New Zealand. A kick must get them out of trouble here. Dixon charging again. That was the last tackle, and so the scrum must pack down on this spot now. They're only about 8 yards out from the New Zealand line. A kick would have got them out of trouble. Why they didn't use it, I think they might regret that. It's an Australian ball. Goes to Gleeson, who's knocked it on and regained, but loose on the ground and regained again. The advantage rule couldn't apply there, of course, with New Zealand unable to get the ball, and so the scrum now will pack down a bit further back, about 20 yards out from the New Zealand line. It's Bob Irvine to feed the scrum for New Zealand, standing to right of referee Pearce, and it's an Australian ball picked up by Raper. Surely he knocked that on, he did, and the referee's caught it again. Lots of bad handling because the ball is so slippery. Scrum to pack down again, and once more Bob Irvine to feed it for New Zealand. An Australian ball to Gleeson. Dummy trying to get rid of it and gets either way well. Knocked down, Smith's pass, knocked down, booted through by it. But referee has blown his whistle, has called for the knock-on as players are still racing for it. Some of them not quite sure of exactly what happened, and some didn't hear the whistle. Another scrum for the knock-on to pack down now outside the New Zealand 25, about 27 yards out, right in front of the New Zealand posts. Once again, Bob Irvine to feed this scrum for New Zealand, and the New Zealand front row is having a lot of trouble getting down. In, and it's a New Zealand ball. Bob Irvine has it. He's looking towards Mills. No, he kicks. Racing for it is his winger, Baker. Also, Irvine is racing for it, number 2. Lets it trickle into touch. It beat him, in fact, and he'll now have to guard that wing very carefully because, quite obviously, New Zealand will be working towards Baker's wing. The scrum to pack down right on the Australian 25. The scrum to be fed by Billy Smith, number 7 for Australia. Australia running left to right in this second half. Smith puts it in for Australia. Did not get into the scrum at all. In fact, was aimed for the second row, and so the penalty goes to New Zealand. This is well within kicking range for Roger Tate. It could perhaps get New Zealand back in front. With 8 minutes gone in the second half, Australia 8 are leading New Zealand 7 after 2 tries and a goal against a try and 2 goals for New Zealand. And Roger Tate, who has landed the 2 goals for his side, is ready to have a shot at this one, placing it on the mark of the scrum, 10 yards in from touch. He can follow the flight of this one perfectly. Little breeze to worry about. The breeze has dropped away to almost nothing. And Tate, who has kicked exceptionally well, all his kicks have been very, very close or have gone over the crossbar, has a wonderful opportunity now of getting his side back in front. A very even test considering the open nature of the first two tests, one in order by Australia 22-13 and then last Saturday 35-22, where we saw lots of try scoring and lots of open play. Today a much tighter game. Roger Tate, number 6, New Zealand 5'8", ready now to try and put his side back in front. It'll be a very good kick if he lands it, considering the greasy nature of the ball. It's not bad, swinging in, I think it's there. No, it dropped short, didn't quite reach the posts, taken by Langlands, and Langlands runs it out about 5 yards. He'll play it to Lynch. Raper backs up, puts his head down and barges and makes about another 5 or 6 yards. Australia in possession, in a little bit of trouble. They must get out from around their own line. The clearing kick, I think you'll find, will come up from this one. Last tackle coming up for Australia. Back it goes to Langlands. There's his kick, which won't go near the line. Straight into the mud patch. Elwood comes up, gathers it. Off his boot, was not a knock-on. Looks for the line himself. It'll beat everybody, I think, and it's into touch. Magnificent kick. And Elwood's kick for the line completely beat Billy Smith, and the flag is raised 5 yards out. Scrum to pack down 10 yards in from that spot, and it'll be Billy Smith defeated for Australia. If New Zealand get the ball, Australia could be in a bit of trouble. Just watching this winger Baker, number 5, very carefully. They could use the blind side. No, they swing it out there and find Snell. Snell going straight and hard for the line, but taken by Raper, number 8. They're only 10 yards out from the Australian line, playing it to Bob Irvine. Roger Tate now. Dummies, and he'll get the pass back himself if he's lucky as it swings out amongst the backs. New Zealand have it, but the Australian cover defence coming up much too quickly for them. Playing it to Tate. A long one over here. Out that finds Orchard. Orchard clapping on the pace, and then Snell, number 13, going through. Still on the Australian 25, and last tackle coming up for New Zealand. With the ball, Gary Smith from the dummy half. Swings it over there and finds fullback Elwood looking for a field goal. Gone to the left of the post, no points. The scores remain at Australia 8, New Zealand 7 after 11 minutes play in the second half. 25 dropout now coming up for Australia, and with the ball, Graham Langlands, who's had a very quiet day after his bad head knock early in the first half. There's his kick, won't find touch, goes to Baker, the New Zealand left winger. Hemmed in here, but he'll have a run anyway. Straight into Jeff Connell, and also the other second rower for Australia, Ron Lynch. Playing it to Colin O'Neill. Getting it away there to Dixon. Dixon putting his head now, number 11, and barging, almost lost the ball. Tackled by Raper and also by Lynch and Connell. Snell now, number 13, clapping on the pace, gets his pass inside there to Gary Smith, going well too, looks for support and backing up well, but it's a knock-on by New Zealand there as Bob Irvine went for it. The knock-on has been called, player still diving for it, but the player had been recalled to a spot about 15 yards out from the Australian line, right in front of the posts. A trifling amount of danger there. I think the Australian cover defence would have pulled down Bob Irvine if he'd got his hands to the ball in any case. But it was a fairly close shave. Put in by Billy Smith for Australia, an Australian ball. Running the blind side, looking towards Gleeson, couldn't get his pass away. 20 yards out from the Australian line. Here's Gallagher going through. Big blonde-haired Queensland front rower. Not quite at the Australian 25. Smith gets it away well here to Connell. Connell gets his pass, a bad one ahead of Raper, unfortunately, who fell on it. The forward pass has been ruled, however. A knock-on also came out of that, and so a scrum to pack down right on the Australian 25, pretty well centre field. Smith puts it in for Australia. It'll be New Zealand ball, I think, and it comes out to Irvine, gets it away well there. A short kick over towards the centres. It's gone too far. Underneath it is Langlands calling for the ball. Could be danger here. He's broken clear up towards Mills, who takes him beautifully underneath, right on the Australian 25 again. Out to Raper. Raper looks towards Irvine's wing. Can't swing a pass clear. He'll get up and play it to Billy Smith. Smith looks towards his backs and finds Connell going through. Barges. Runs straight and hard into Orchard. Last tackle coming up for Australia. The dummy half is Kelly. Kelly with a long one back to Langlands to get in his clearing kick, and there it is, looking for the line. It could beat everybody too with an ounce of luck, and Elwood has juggled it and knocked it into touch, and so the scrum will pack down just inside the New Zealand half. 14 minutes gone in the second half, still Australia 8, New Zealand 7. Ball to be put into the scrum by Bob Irvine for New Zealand, and an Australian ball, Smith. Looks for the gap, almost through, not quite, as Gleeson came up in support. Plays it to Raper. Raper with a long scoop pass over there to McDonald. He's got Gasnier outside, decides to go on his own. Tackled by Bob Irvine, gets his pass to Raper. Raper barging his way forward has made it up to within 35 yards of the New Zealand line. Goes back to Smith. Still tries that side of the field. Over to Gasnier, who's got King outside him on the wing. If he can get clear, can't quite get his pass away as King came inside. King will be the dummy half. They're just outside the New Zealand 25. Gallagher now swings around, gets a bad pass, but it's eventually picked up by Billy Smith. Over to King now on the wing. Comes to Christian. Christian puts him down and also into touch about 22 yards out from the New Zealand line. 15 minutes gone in this second half. Only 1 point the difference, a match in which anything can happen. Put into the scrum by Irvine for New Zealand. An Australian ball out to Gleeson to Gasnier. Glengland's coming up as extra man. Finds McDonald, however. McDonald might go in again, and he's underneath the post for Australia. Beautiful backline movement once again by Australia, set up by Gasnier on that occasion, who cut out two men, sidestepped another one, and left the defence completely floundering to give John McDonald a saloon passage run straight to the post, and Australia now have raced further ahead and lead New Zealand 11 points to 7 with the attempted conversion from right in front to come. Oddly enough, last Saturday in Brisbane, John McDonald scored 2 tries for Australia in the second test against New Zealand, and has now equalled that effort in this third test at the cricket ground. The crowd around the ground a little bit wet, but excited. The game has been far closer than any of the previous 2 tests, and New Zealand can't be written off, even though they're trailing 11-7 with the kick to come, which should really go over and put Australia ahead 13 points to 7. Let's see how McDonald goes. Right in front, an easy kick. In the air, the flags are up, and so Australia have got away to a lead of 13 points to 7 over New Zealand after 16 minutes play in the second half. New Zealand not out of this fight at all. They've gone close on a number of occasions. The ball now has been placed by Roger Tate. Elwood comes through from the fullback position, drives it fairly deep towards Irvine. Taken, in fact, though, by Langlands. Langlands up towards the 25. Oh, and runs into a high tackle there by Krilitic. Will get up and play it to Johnny Raper. Raper to Lynch. Lynch across field, looking for a bit of a gap. Can't get his pass away as Connell came up in support. Playing it to Buman. Raper. Inside to Gallagher. Gallagher bursts clear and gets it here beautifully to Connell. Connell's pass is knocked down, picked up by Christian for New Zealand. He'll be ridden into the ground by Gasnier and also by Connell, and play now right back just outside the New Zealand 25, but at least the visitors have the ball. Back it goes to Tate. Tate with a long one over towards his centres, but his centres won't do anything with it from this point of view. Bailey going through with it is crashed down by Raper number 8 just outside his own 25. From the dummy half, it's Snell going through. Makes a good 5 or 6 yards. The last tackle coming up for New Zealand. They're about 35 yards out from their own line. There's the kick for the line. Racing back at number 7 is Billy Smith, the Australian halfback. Takes it just outside his own 25. Baker comes across to get Irvine after the pass from Smith. Irvine down. He'll play it to Billy Smith. Lots of players out of position. Swings across to Raper, then across to Langlands from the fullback position. Here's the gap coming up again. Through one tackle, still going, an overhand pass to King. King's going for the corner, has cut out Christian, but eventually crashed down there by Mills coming across in cover defence. Australia now starting to run riot right through the New Zealand cover defences. Gasnier gets his backs moving again. Kelly going through, coming up in support. Last tackle coming up for Australia, just inside the New Zealand 25. Australia has been out-hooked, it's been kicked through. Racing back forward is Bob Irvine. Kelly's after him. Kelly dives and misses. And now Bob Irvine will probably boot it and look for the line and gain a bit of distance. Nobody there for Australia. King's racing back forward, and I think it'll beat him, and it's into touch. And the flag goes up, let's see, about 10 yards or so inside the Australian half. Another close shave for New Zealand as Kelly looked dangerous for a moment, but Bob Irvine, the New Zealand halfback, once again has got them out of trouble. Scrum going down on this spot. Smith to put it in for Australia. Not much of a tunnel at the moment. In there somewhere, the scrum has collapsed. I think it's a New Zealand ball. See in a moment, I think we'll also have another scrum because the scrum collapsed pretty well immediately. The ball was put into the tunnel. 18 minutes gone in this second half, and a New Zealand ball, I'm sure this time, diving for it, Bob Irvine, and Irvine has it. Smith disputing, but referee Pearce says give it to Irvine. It swings over here via Dixon out towards the centres where Tate has a bit of a kick. Up in the air, Langland's racing forward, it's missed. Here's a bit of danger. Oh, but Australia's recovered as Lynch gets it and goes straight down the centre. Lynch the second row forward, back inside, but an intercept by Elwood, the New Zealand fullback. Puts his boot to the ball and he's smash tackle. Take a while to get up from that one. Has found touch on the far side, the scoreboard touchline with a beautiful kick. only about 27 yards out from the Australian line. New Zealand falling apart at the seams now around the edge of the rucks, and the big Australian second row forward starting to run miles with the ball. Once again put in by Smith for Australia, dived on by Bob Irvine for New Zealand. The players didn't think that was okay, but referee Pearce said play on. New Zealand with the ball on the Australian 25. Out to Tate, Bailey to Mills. Here's Elwood up as extra man, gets his pass away again, and Gasnier did a magnificent job there of tackling two men. He had Elwood and also Bailey. Out to winger Baker, who's lost it. Australia has regained, but we had the knock-on called, and so a scrum to pack down with one of the Australians in the background down on his hands and knees, a little bit knocked about. The scrum, when he does get to his feet, will pack down about 10 yards inside the Australian half. Try and pick up the player for you now. All the centres on their feet. A bit hard to tell who it is from here. Could be Gleeson, perhaps, the 5'8", but we'll go back to him in a moment and just go quickly over what's happened to this point, with Australia leading New Zealand 13 points to 7, and for Australia 2 tries by centre McDonald and 1 by winger Irvine and 2 goals by McDonald, and for New Zealand a try by Roger Tate and 2 goals by Tate. And up until the start of the second half, the player incidentally was Noel Kelly, coming back now just slightly to left of referee Pearce. He'll go into the front row position. But up until the start of the second half, it was relatively close. But in the second half, Australia has started to carve right through the New Zealanders. A penalty to New Zealand that time for Australia, pushing the New Zealand pack off the mark. And a good chance, I think it's perhaps a little bit far out for Tate. It's only 10 yards inside the Australian half, and more than likely he'll look for touch, I think. And here he goes, Roger Tate looking for the near side, that is the member stand touchline. The kick is a very good one, has raised the flag about 10 yards out. Ball thrown to the hooker, Colin O'Neill, who'll take the tap penalty. Runs on his own for a while, gets it back inside there to Snell, who's put down only about 3 yards short. He'll get up and play it here to Dixon. Dixon, the big second rower. Gets his pass away well. Let's see what they can do with it. Snell again backing up. Has pushed back for his troubles about 5 yards and can't get rid of the ball. A penalty to New Zealand right in front of the Australian posts, that time against Johnny Raper for attempting to steal the ball off Snell as he was on the ground. And this one is a sitter, a 2-point certainty for Roger Tate, as Reg Gasnier came across and spoke to referee Cole Pearce. But the reason for the penalty was pretty obvious. Roger Tate now could bring New Zealand up to a very strong position. If he gets this one, it'll make the score Australia 13, New Zealand 9, with something like 19 minutes to go to full time. Now, with only 4 points the difference, and the way Tate is kicking, this test is still far from over. It depends entirely on this kick. Now, I don't think Roger Tate will miss it, although we'd hate to jinx him. He's only about 15 yards out. He's pretty well in line with the left upright, and he's a wonderful kicker at short range. Roger Tate now with a chance to put New Zealand right back into the fight. Here he comes, and the flags are up, and so New Zealand have got right back into this third test match after another 2 points put on the board by Roger Tate. Australia now leads New Zealand 13 points to 9. Referee Cole Pearce standing on the centre mark, waiting for Billy Smith, the Australian halfback, to bring the ball back for the kick to recommence play. Graham Langlands, we notice, although he's out of picture, of course, is just standing way back at the fullback position, and I think he's been shaken up badly in this game. That one just went to 10 yards and then knocked on by New Zealand front row, or rather hooker, Colin O'Neill. Scrum to pack down on that spot, 10 yards inside the New Zealand half. To feed the scrum, Bob Irvine. It's an Australian ball, no, a New Zealand ball. Bob Irvine gets onto it, managed to duck right around the edge of the Australian pack before it broke. Will get to his feet now and play it midway between his own 25 and the halfway line. Let's see if they can do anything at all now. Krilitic trying to barge his way through. Australia's ball as it goes to Kelly. Back the other way to Raper. Could be a score coming up here. Raper looks for a bit of a gap. Looks for McDonald, number 4. Can't get his pass away. We'll get up and play it now to Gallagher. Gallagher on the blind side to Kelly. Kelly goes straight and hard down the side. Gets it inside there to McDonald, going for his third try. But he's taken well that time by Mills. Almost lost the ball and throws a punch at Mills. Raper straight and hard, can't get his pass away. We'll play this one 20 yards out from the New Zealand line. Touch judges didn't come in. The incident occurred right in front of Pearce, who obviously warned both players in running, and now coming in from his left, Australia's McDonald, in from his right, New Zealanders Lester Mills. And Mills nettled McDonald, who threw the punch you saw. Nothing comes of it, just a very hurried caution. The scrum to pack down to be fed by Irvine for New Zealand. Only 20 yards out from the New Zealand line. A New Zealand ball, but it didn't get into the scrum cleanly. I'll probably use the near side, I think. No, they won't. They decided to switch if they win it. And diving onto it anyway is Smith for Australia. Plays this one back to Raper. Raper across to Gleeson. Looks for Gasnier. Decides to go on his own. Can't get his pass away. They're back where they started. The dummy half will be Ron Lynch. Tries the other side. Out to Raper. Raper with a good one to McDonald. And then to Langland's coming up as extra man from the full-back position inside to McDonald. McDonald going for the line and is grasped about 1 yard short. He'll get up and play it to Buman, the Australian hooker. Out to Raper. Raper back inside there to Connell. Connell going for the line. Is he over? He must be very close. No, he said no, and that was the last tackle against Australia. No try. Connell dived and didn't quite make it in the last tackle against Australia, and so the scrum to go back 5 yards. It'll be Irvine to feed it. New Zealand have the loose head. Bounces straight out New Zealand's way, but didn't get into the scrum cleanly. The crowd posted at 27,530, and they're enjoying every moment of this third test match. An Australian ball. Smith, Gleeson, back to Smith. Here's a bit of a gap, and he must go in. I think if he can hurry. No, he's dragged down. Oh, only about 5 yards short. Gets to his feet, places to Raper. Raper across to Gleeson. Gasnier outside him, but he throws it back the other way to Lynch. Lynch is knocked on, and the scrum will now have to pack down, although New Zealand dive for it and are claiming possession. Referee Pearce has called for the knock-on, and so we'll have a scrum packed down about 12 yards back from the New Zealand line. Australia 13, New Zealand 9. New Zealand need the ball. They've been hammered here on their own line for the last 5 or 6 minutes. Put in by Irvine for New Zealand. And this time it is a New Zealand ball, but it's gone right behind standing out of the scrum Dixon. Has to get to his feet now and play it to the winger. No, coming back one of the forwards helped him out, and they're back to where they started, only about 8 yards out from their own line. Playing it to Snell, throws a long one over there, trying to get his backs moving, but he's trying the wrong side of the field. New Zealand, with the last tackle coming up, will have to kick to get themselves out of trouble. And a kick towards the backs would be a good idea. Back it goes to Tate. Tate with his kick. It's gone infield, and taking it on the run here is Langland. Langland's going for the corner, props, trying to set up McDonald. It's still going, flings it over here. It's gone over Irvine's head and into touch. Langland's very slow to get to his feet. He's a very second-sorry footballer. He's had a number of very heavy knocks in this game. The scrum to pack down now just outside the New Zealand 25. Put in by Irvine for New Zealand, an Australian ball, though. I think you'll see as it comes out, it'll go to Gleeson. Gleeson trying to step around the edge there of Snell, but Snell gets back to Raper, to McDonald. But a penalty to New Zealand against Raper, I would imagine, taking the ball off Gleeson when Pearce had asked Gleeson to play the ball. Roger Tate now to look for the line on the near side touch line. Irvine watches it carefully, but it's found touch magnificently. The flag has gone up 10 yards inside the New Zealand half. Played away by O'Neill. Across this time to Dixon. Dixon running hard, but well taken by his opposite number, Kelly. Plays it to Orchard. Orchard spears a good pass away there that finds Snell. Snell trying to go around the edge of Jeff Connell. Well put down. They're just short of the halfway line in their own half of the field as Colin O'Neill spears it away again to Tate. Tate with a wild sort of a pass over there that did find, in fact, Lester Mills, and he'll get to his feet and play it with the last tackle coming up a yard inside the Australian half. Here's Tate with his kick, driving Australia back. Underneath it, Billy Smith takes it beautifully, about 6 yards out from his own line. No cover defence at the moment. Coming across goes to Langlands. Langlands is caught. Orchard gets onto him. Is going to swing him down hard here as referee Pearce comes across and tells him to break it up. Plays it to Buman. Buman with a long one across to Gleeson. Gleeson running wide across field. Can't get a pass away. We'll get up and play this one centre field on the Australian 25. Playing it to Lynch. To Kelly, rather, with a long one across then to Gallagher. But the knock-on apparently had been called as he fumbled that ball from the play the ball. The scrum to pack down on that spot to be fed by Smith for Australia. And another Australian ball. Smith has swarmed down though. He can't get the ball away cleanly. Comes to Raper. Raper almost through, but taken by Orchard, but gets his pass that goes past Gleeson. Gleeson goes back for it, chased by Tate. Tate will dive and just miss, and he's still going, but runs into a high tackle that spins him around. Will play this one just outside the Australian 25. Gallagher, the dummy half, the Australian front row forward. Straight into the centre of the New Zealanders, which was probably the wrong thing to do. Waiting for him was Colin O'Neill, who dumped him hard, and also Orchard. Out to Gasnier. Tries a kick this time. Drives everybody back. Elwood racing for it. I think he'll probably get to it if he hurries and gets it. Slips it back inside. The flag went up, however. He obviously was sure he got rid of it before his boot went into touch. You see the skid mark as he went out over the touch line. The scrum to go down then 10 yards in. That's about 35 yards out from the New Zealand line. Well, who's got that one? As New Zealand have it, get to their feet, played away there beautifully up to Sunil, number 13. Makes the gap, taken by Raper. Will get them up and play this one 10 yards inside the New Zealand half. Out it goes to Mills. Mills trying to push up everybody. Gasnier misses with a high tackle, and McDonald eventually finishes him off. He'll play it to Bailey. Bailey 10 yards inside the New Zealand half. Looks for his back line. They're a little bit out of formation. Here's the fullback Elwood up, getting it across here to Baker, who's fumbled it badly, gone behind him. It's a knockback, he says. He's still slipping. Runs into Gleeson. Gleeson comes at him and put him down. Oh, something like 35 yards out from the New Zealand line. But that was the last tackle. And so the scrum to go down now on that spot, with one of the New Zealand players requiring first aid treatment out in the back line. I think it's probably, yes it is, it's the centre, Lester Mills, who in fact was selected to play this game as a winger, but then after centre Wayne White withdrew, he was moved into the centre and his own place on the wing taken by Ted Baker. He'll be back into the centre three-quarter line in just a moment, and when he does, we'll see this scrum packed down about 35 yards out from the New Zealand line. Crowd 27,530, and they're watching Australia leading New Zealand 13 points to 9 with only 10 minutes to go to full time. New Zealand 4 points behind, but still not beaten, although in the last 20-odd minutes it's quite apparent that Australia has been a far better team. You can't take anything away from New Zealand. They've tried hard, and this is by far their best test match appearance on this 1967 Australian tour, but unfortunately I don't think they're still quite good enough. Scrum ready now, and Billy Smith will put this one in because it was the final tackle against New Zealand. Before the scrum actually gets going, or the ball goes into the scrum, a penalty against New Zealand for pushing Australia off the mark. And Graham Langlands now will come up and almost certainly have a shot at goal, I would imagine. No, he's decided to go for the line, so quite obviously he's not feeling ready for goal kicks, because McDonald is certain to be replaced. He can't keep going the way he is. Human to take the tap penalty for Australia. Raper, Gleeson, McDonald, and a step around Tate, but Tate gets onto him, comes back at him, makes sure that he won't move. He'll play it here to Lynch. Back the other way, that finds Kelly. Kelly gets his pass to Langlands. He's got Irvine outside him. He's going hard for the corner himself. Crashed down by Orchard. Got his pass inside to Buman. That beats Kelly. Goes back to Raper. Raper's going for the corner, but he's put out just before he makes the line. That was another close shave for New Zealand, but at least the cover defence worked well. They predicted all Australia's moves on that occasion. The scrum packing down 5 yards back. Put in by Irvine for New Zealand. That's an Australian ball. Smith darting around the edge of the ruck himself. Well put down, though, by Krilitic. Plays it here to Raper, to Lynch, going hard for the line, almost over, gets his pass away. Australia wrestling for possession with New Zealand for the ball, but they're not over. Could be close. Lynch is the dummy half. This could be the try if he's very quick. Now he spears at the other side to Raper, to Kelly. Kelly's caught. Gets his pass back to Langlands. Takes it one-handed. He's got Irvine outside him. Decides to go, and he must be in. But Mr. Pearce, however, has called him back and said no, and has given a penalty to New Zealand. And that one is very difficult. I honestly haven't got a reason for that one. The penalty, however, has got New Zealand out of trouble. The only possible reason there could have been, I think, was shepherding. And I think that's probably the ruling by referee Pearce. There's the kick for New Zealand, which has found the line about midway between the New Zealand 25 and the halfway line. And the tap penalty will be taken here by Colin O'Neill, number 9, the hooker. Gets it away past Dixon. It's gone behind that player, picked up eventually by Gary Smith, but the knock-on has been called, and so we'll have a scrum packed down about 37 yards out from the New Zealand line. Clock showing 8 minutes to go to full time. Irvine to feed the scrum for New Zealand. Another Australian ball, though. It goes to Raper, breaking quickly. Has found a bit of a gap. Chased across by Sunil. Trying to get his pass away, but he can't. He's caught around the arms. He'll get up and play this one on the New Zealand 25. Throws to Smith. Back the other way, and they find Gallagher. McDonald outside him. There's McDonald with King outside him, but he's going hard for the line himself. Crashed down eventually by Bailey, about 5 yards short. Good enterprising play by McDonald. King spears it away to Gallagher. A long one over here that finds Smith. Gasnier dummying, gets a bad pass. Eventually Glanglands takes it though, swings it back. No, Dummy's going on his own, can't get his pass away. Cover defence swarming over. Bailey in number 4 with a crushing sort of a tackle. Kelly with the ball is caught in a penalty, and rightly so, against Bailey coming through too quickly. Offside, in fact. And he's arguing with the referee, as you can see, and being cautioned, I would imagine, for disputing what was an obvious breach of the rules. And he's just been told, any more of that old fellow and you'll leave the field. The penalty to Australia, it's been awarded about 10-15 yards to the right of the posts. And kicker John McDonald, with whom Australia is persevering, because he hasn't had such a marvellous day with the boot, he's only landed 2 goals, has taken it back to the 25. And will take his time about this one. There's no sense in being too quick with his kick, because there are still 6 or 7 minutes left on the clock to full time, and in that time New Zealand could still pull this test match out of the fire, although on their form in the last 20 minutes it seems a very far-fetched idea. McDonald is ready now, with Australia leading New Zealand at 13 points to 9. That doesn't look too bad. No, it's gone to the left of the posts, no points. And it's taken back there by the fullback Elwood, who's run it out about 10 or 11 yards, taken by Gleeson, and he'll play this one, try and get his forwards working, I think. And it goes across there that time to Krilitic, running hard, and makes another good 5 or 6 valuable yards. New Zealand testing the Australian forwards right down the line, but I think if anything they're the tireder pack of the two. Last tackle coming up for New Zealand. Goes all the way back to Tate. He'll have his kick for the line. Won't find it. He'll go straight into the waiting arms of Johnny King, the Australian winger. Running into a wall of trouble here. Bounces through one tackle. We'll play this one midway between the New Zealand 25 and the halfway line. Out to Raper. Raper dumming. Looks for a bit of a gap down the centre. Orchard gets him number 10, and also coming in Colin O'Neill. They're 35 yards out from the New Zealand line. Smith to Gleeson. Gleeson dummies. Looks for Gasnier. Can't get his pass away. Bailey number 4 in again to smother that chance. Put away by Raper to Buman. Little short kick ahead over towards King's wing, but it goes the wrong way. Taken over there by Christian, New Zealand winger. Still going infield. Nowhere to go at the moment, though. Runs into a couple of hard tackles. One high, one low. A lollipop pass over here to Bob Irvine. Looks for the line of the member stand touchline. It goes past Ken Irvine, who's racing back for it. Juggles it back infield, but it's gone out, says the touch judge on this side. This is touch judge Mr. R. Lawless, who's watched that one very carefully. Some of the crowd in line with the touchline disputed it. He scrummed the pack down midway between the Australian 25 and the halfway line to be fed by Billy Smith. And a New Zealand ball out to Tate, to Elwood coming through, taken by Gleeson. He makes it not quite up to the Australian 25 centre field. Set away by Tate. Oh, bad pass along the ground, but picked up by Bailey. Bailey into Gasnier, and Gasnier puts him down without really making any forward progress. This time it's Orchard going through, straight and hard. Has brought play about 22 yards out from the Australian line, but the last tackle's coming up. Could get a field goal with a little bit of luck. No, they're looking for a try. Goes all the way over here to Colin O'Neill, the hooker. Looks for his winger over here, Baker, but can't get his pass away, and that was the last tackle. And so the scrum will pack down on that spot, about 37 yards out from the Australian line. The clock showing 3.5 minutes to go to full time, with Australia leading New Zealand 13 points to 9. And it's been a long while since we've seen New Zealand this close to the Australian line. Here's perhaps 2 points. A penalty for hooker Buman for Australia, striking before the ball went into the scrum. A penalty for New Zealand, and Tate will come across. I think he'll go for goal, because if he can get a penalty goal on the board, it'll bring the score up to Australia 13, New Zealand 11. No, he's decided to go for the line. There's his kick. which has raised the flag only 5 yards out. Well, fair enough, they have the tap penalty. Baker, the winger, has been asked to take it. He'll probably get his pass away to Dixon, number 11. Goes to Dixon. Dixon straight and hard, but he runs into a lot of trouble in the shape of Connell and also Lynch. New Zealand trying hard. They're looking back towards Baker's wing again, but that was only a dummy. It goes to Irvine, across to Tate. Tate swinging to Bailey. Bailey back inside there that time and found Colin O'Neill. He popped, went the wrong way, taken by McDonald. Running over towards the far side touchline, they've got Bailey and also Christian waiting. Can't get their passes away, and the last tackle coming up for New Zealand. I think they've muffed 2 certain points. This is Elwood with a kick, a good one too, a driving kick, but I think Langlands will be there. Takes it beautifully on his own line. Diving for him, Bob Irvin. They put him down about 2 or 3 yards out from the Australian line. Langlands gets to his feet and plays it now to Raper. Raper back to Smith. Smith running almost behind the post along the line. Gets it across to King. That was a good move. King up to Christian, chased by Orchard. Christian comes at him, takes him high, but swings it back inside there. Finds Gleeson going through, and he's put down and also into touch pretty well right on the halfway line. The clock's showing 2 minutes to go to full time. Still Australia 13, New Zealand 9. Scrum packing down with Irvine to feed the scrum for New Zealand. It's just inside the New Zealand half, just a fraction. Scrum back to the correct mark, put in by Irvine, and diving for it, Smith. He just saw his legs disappearing. We'll see in a moment who has it. No, they've called for the scrum to pack down again, so obviously the ball didn't get in cleanly. Put in by Irvine once more, an Australian ball this time. And again, the scrum was not correctly set down. This will be the 3rd time. If the ball isn't won cleanly this time, there'll be a penalty one way or the other. Irvine again to feed the scrum for New Zealand. Waiting for the scrum to settle down. In it goes. This time it's a New Zealand ball out to Tate. Elwood comes through from the full-back position. He's straight down the centre. Couldn't quite get Bailey into position for a pass. Raper got him beautifully. Out it comes this time to Elwood with a long kick back to Langlands. Langlands takes it just inside his own 25. Decides to run and slam down hard. Will get up and play this one about 27 yards out from his own line. Plays it to Irvine. Then to Raper. Raper straight and hard. As hard crash tackle there by Dixon. Played away by McDonald to Lynch. Lynch straight and hard down the centre. Beach one tackle still going. Had Irvine coming up in support. Couldn't get his pass away. Last tackle coming up for Australia. Goes to Connell. Connell through the mud. Runs straight and hard into Orchard as the full-time hooter goes. And this 3rd test is all over. And Australia has run out the winners. 13 points to 9 over New Zealand before a crowd of 27,530. And for Australia, 2 tries scored by John McDonald and a try scored by Ken Irvine and 2 goals kicked by John McDonald. And for New Zealand, we have a try scored by Roger Tate and 3 goals kicked by Tate. And all the players now traditionally changing their jerseys as they do, of course, at the end of all internationals, the Australians and New Zealanders, and this happens, of course, every time we see a test on the famous Sydney cricket ground with the Frenchmen and the Englishmen. A disappointed New Zealand side, I would imagine, leaving the field, but they've certainly put up a great effort today. The final score, Australia 13 has defeated New Zealand 9. The Sydney cricket ground, the 3rd test of this 1967 series, July 8, 1967.